Welcome back. It is the Face of Friday night. Peter Kivazo and Charles Romshana, Richard Baguma, and Mary Motesi. Mary.
Yes.
I've listened to the supposed realist, who is Richard Baguma. Richard rationalizes a capture of the party by an individual and says for the survival of this, he reminds me of a set of the Bolsheviks. For some reason, they had a justification for every action of the then number one. If number one acted in that direction, it was the policy of the party. And therefore, if you had supported otherwise, the previous day you fell off the rail of the party and you had become a saboteur.
Actually, any method that removes the members is justified. Any method.
There you are. There you are. Yet another. Mary, one. What's the whole about this? If indeed legally it is just one of the routine meetings. Number two, how does it fit into the conference at Africana this week that says, okay, you are going to have changes, here is what we think you should also include. And Otafire had, as Minister of Constitutional Affairs, run an advert this week, and this week or last week, saying, please bring your thoughts on what you would like us to touch up in the Constitution. How does the whole of this ball game fit?
Well, thank you, Peter. And I just want to start with the delegates conference. And just for the benefit of viewers, of course, Charles is making...
For which you are the generator of the new register.
Charles is making a whole fun about my statement that I'm part of it because of my specialized services, and for him he wants to bring in innuendos of what the services could be. But just for clarity,
we don't intend to ask what the services are.
I'm a member of the publicity team of the delegates conference, and that's what I'll be doing in Nambole, not to do any other thing. But just for starters, you asked a question, what's the whole about, and that's what everybody is asking. And also I wanted to ask a question, is it an abnormality for a party to hold a delegates conference? Because what happens is that as if somebody somewhere out there is thinking that it's an abnormality. But I think this is the season when every party should be engaging in that. And I've heard many other political parties in Uganda are also gearing up to have their delegates conference. So it is very normal. It's part of what was envisaged in a multi-party setting that Ugandans opted for instead of the movement system. And it is very normal to a party, a mass party like NRM. Definitely a delegates conference is very normal to have that. But also people are reading so much into what's going to happen in Nambole. And there are a lot of debates that are going on. Everybody is saying the other, this or the other. But all
and we have the benefit of having you here, who is part of the publicity team.
And that's
of the
what
party.
I'm about to say.
Tell us what the Hula Balu is about. Candid truth.
The candid truth is that the party is going to discuss its internal issues. What people are looking at as constitutional amendments that are coming up, especially with the NRM conference. There are no amendments that are meant to take up place, but only that those who are proposing amendments are called upon to present their proposed amendments. And the delegates conference, as an organ of the party, shall adopt that the amendments be made, and then other organs of the party take over that.
Hold.
Yes.
That's the official song. That's the official song. And
is it a sad song?
Really, I need a bit of the grit. I need a bit of the truth. Away from the color, away from the painting. Scrap it off. Get us into the meat. You have a Secretary General that has to be fired. you have a president or a chairman that has to take the powers of the party to his table and say, I will appoint the Secretary General, I will appoint the runners of the party, and I receive my sole candidature unopposed. Someone says that you apply to be elected against no opposition. I mean, the whole of this grit. Then you have the fellow that is being fired on the side, looking with a grin, not annoyed at all, and that I find
You
very
see,
interesting.
I think
that
that's-
grin when you're being fired, when you're being
That's
shot and
what,
told,
precisely,
you're sitting in the firing seat and you're
yes.
grinning.
That's what Richard mentioned about, and the whole issue of whether an SG should be an appointed SG or elected. It's a matter of the internal democracy of that party.
Or the
It's
absence
just,
of that.
It's just equivalent to, for example, different parties have their different ways of handling their internal issues, and the way they interpret their democracy within there. And by the way, for the benefit of viewers, it's not necessarily true that when people hold indoor meetings and decide on something or decide on a candidate, that connotes lack of democracy. There are different ways of managing different situations. There are other procedures that are available. But what Uganda we are used to is open open election competition and all that. And yet there are different ways. Also to mention that also we find in Uganda, for example, in NRM, for someone to be a flag bearer in a constituency, you must have gone through a primary election where you go and compete against the others. There are political parties in Uganda who just sit on a table like this and agree and say so and so go to
For
this
lack of
constituency,
candidates.
the other person go there, the other person go there. So when we flash a torch into the internal democracies of either party, you may find something lacking, but that doesn't mean that they are lacking in terms of democracy. That is
Let me read
the
you
format
this. Let me
that
read
they
you this.
chose.
Isabidie Godwin says, Kibazo, for lack of better description, and like my chairman has said, these Bayaga that come, on which side of the Bayaga is Mary? Isabidie is asking on which side of the Bayaga is Mary. And then goes on, puts 3 dots and goes on and says, all of you are wasting our time. The truth is, these are rehearsals for 2016 and 2021. Comrade Mugabe has been there. He recently fired his vice president and ejected him from the conference of the ruling party. And I am seeing this in Uganda. Why do they come so alike and with no new tricks? Isabidi.
Well, Isabdi asks which side of the Bayaga. I don't know which Bayaga they are talking about.
The one, you've forgotten the new baptism.
Just to forget about that. I mean, in
It was only a metaphor of noisemakers. If I mean,
in our
you make
Ugandan
Jacqueline
language,
was also called them Rumpenes.
you cannot run away from jargons, you cannot run away from slangs that are being used these days. But of course, people like Charles would jump onto anything that is a slang and try to smear it differently. But I think to me it is an ignorable comment, and we should deal with more serious issues. Otherwise, if we turn the debate into who is Muyaga, and it could as well mean from people from Rebuyaga.
That makes it worse now.
Okay, I have Okello here. Okello says, gentlemen and lady, deal with the more serious issues of constitutional amendments, whether it is within parties or within the state. Should they be tailored to benefit individuals, whether Amama or Museveni or Besigye or whoever? Should those reforms in the constitution be tailored? And must we have reforms every time before an election?
But you see, I find
That's okay.
I find some questions difficult. Somebody talks about a state, and is making an inference that the things that form a state do not include the political parties in that entity. So then if you exclude the political parties, if you exclude those institutions where statocracy is really anchored, so what then remains? So for me, this talk about issues and what is not an issue. That we have a challenge of a register for the national largest mass party in the country, and you have a delegates conference coming up, and you say that's not a serious challenge.
Hold there, hold there. Have you actually finally got the register? Did you bump into it? Was it under the table? Was it on the street or somewhere?
For the delegates conference per se, we don't need that register, whether it's there or not, because the people are known. For example, the structures, the people who are supposed to be part of a delegates conference are well known, and that is what the Namayanja team was doing. Identifying those people, reaching out
what
to those.
What expertise do you have?
Even, and by the way, there is...
What expertise?
No, but but publicity and
There
media should not be confused. Publicity is not necessarily media.
Yeah.
It is, publicity is beyond.
Oh, that's what...
Selling the brand. Selling the brand.
Selling the
What
brand.
expertise do I have?
No. Mary,
Yeah.
I was still interested in the notion of the registers
Yes.
and the absence of them and the presence and the reappearance. Isn't that actually the manipulation that the other side is worried about? Or are we dealing with the
side? Which
beneficiaries?
side?
Because Charles says that in the previous delegates conference, you had, as a party, people that were accredited as ushers, people that were accredited as clerks, finally voting.
You see,
And the
so-
beneficiaries
so-
of that, naturally, number one was the chairman of the party, because he had been voted massively. If these people voted, he benefited from that. The Secretary General benefited from that because he trounced.
And it closed there.
No, it did not. People like Naduli benefited because his votes were recounted and he won very well. My friend Ruth Nankabirwa, we were with you when she was mourning and crying about losing an election that she had won. After the returns had come in, she was told, no, there is no way you win and the other one wins, so you have lost.
We have ignored Okero's question.
Yes.
Which one was that? I think I was responding to that. And I asked the question about the seriousness of some issues. And you know, we therefore need to ask these parties, all of them, and say, show us your registers. We know that the parties have not been able to show us their accounts. We know that. These are the people who are going to go into national management. Why do we expect that when they get out of the parties and go into national management, they will show us accounts? And when you say that these are not serious issues of statocracy, I start getting worried, because those are serious issues. Let's for a second say that this Nambole conference, 15th December, is as important as we are assigning it. Because you see, for me, I'm keeping on saying that it is not as important, in my view, in the scheme of things, as we are assigning it.
But Jesus Christ.
I think for me, actually, that Jesus, yes, you will come to the Jesus Christ. I think, why should somebody say that it is wrong to do a dress rehearsal for 2016? For God's sake.
No, what is Okelo's issue is, every time you have an election, we have been amending the constitution.
Yeah, and
is it that the constitution has a problem, or is it that every time we arrive at an election, we have to tailor the constitution to the people that are running the state as at that time?
But
we'll take a break and then come back with that.